In the spring of 23 BC, the first emperor of Rome lay dying. Augustus, the man who had ended decades of civil war and rebuilt Rome from brick to marble, was crippled by a mysterious, debilitating liver ailment. His body was racked with fever, his joints swollen, and his energy entirely spent. His imperial physicians, following the standard medical orthodoxy of the time, had tried everything they knew. They wrapped the emperor in heavy wool blankets, kept him in hot rooms, and forced him to drink steaming herbal infusions. But the heat only made him weaker. Augustus was preparing for his death, and the future of the entire Roman Empire hung in the balance. In desperation, the court turned to a Greek physician named Antonius Musa. Musa looked at the sweating, fading emperor and made a radical decision. He threw out the blankets, opened the windows, and ordered Augustus to be bathed in cold water. And then, he prescribed a medicine that shocked the court, a steady diet of cold lettuce. Against all expectations, the treatment worked. Within weeks, the fever broke, the swelling subsided, and Augustus was back on his feet. The emperor was so grateful that he granted Musa tax-free status for life and ordered a bronze statue of the physician to be erected next to the temple of Aesculapius. But the Romans did not just honor the doctor, they also honored the medicine. Lettuce, once a humble garden plant, became an imperial sensation. Yet, if you were to sit down at Augustus's table and taste the salad that supposedly saved his life, you would not recognize it. It would not look like a modern Caesar, a Greek salad, or a fresh garden bowl. It would be served warm, it would smell powerfully of rotting fish, and it would taste sweet, sour, and intensely savory all at once. To understand why the Roman salad was so radically different from ours, we have to start with the very word we use to describe it. Our English word salad comes from the vulgar Latin salata, which is a shortened form of herba salata, literally salted vegetables. To the ancient Roman, a salad was not defined by its freshness, but by its preservation. In a world without refrigeration, raw vegetables were a liability. They spoiled quickly, harbored dirt and parasites, and were difficult to digest. Salt was the primary tool used to make greens safe. Vegetables were either pickled in brine, packed in salt, or heavily seasoned to draw out moisture and kill bacteria. When a Roman sat down to eat herba salata, they were not eating a crisp, raw appetizer. They were eating a product of preservation. But the differences go far deeper than salt. If you walked into a Roman garden at the height of the empire, you would be struck by what was missing. The Mediterranean diet of 2,000 years ago completely lacked the ingredients we associate with it today. There were no tomatoes. There were no bell peppers or chili peppers. There were no zucchini, no maize, and no potatoes. All of these crops are native to the Americas and would not cross the Atlantic for another 1,500 years. Even the vegetables the Romans did have were very different from our modern varieties. Their carrots were not orange, but purple or yellow. Their cucumbers were small, bitter, and resembled wild gourds. The lettuce itself was not the mild, watery iceberg we buy in supermarkets. Roman lettuce, known as lactuca, was a leafy, upright plant closer to romaine, but with thick, tough leaves that carried a sharp, bitter bite. To make these bitter, tough greens palatable, the Romans did not use a simple mixture of olive oil and lemon juice. Lemons were virtually unknown in Rome, and olive oil alone was not enough to mask the bitterness. Instead, they developed a complex, aggressive system of seasoning designed to hit every corner of the human palate. At the center of this system was a condiment called garum, also known as liquamen. Garum was the lifeblood of Roman cuisine. To make it, factories along the Mediterranean coast filled large stone vats with fish guts, typically mackerel, anchovies, or tuna, and layered them with salt and herbs. The mixture was left to ferment in the hot sun for several months. As the fish decomposed, a clear amber liquid rose to the top. This liquid was strained, bottled, and shipped across the empire. Garum was not a minor ingredient. It was used in place of salt in almost every Roman dish, including desserts, meats, and salads. It was a potent source of glutamates, delivering an intense wave of salty umami. To a modern palate, a salad dressed with garum would taste remarkably similar to a dish dressed with Southeast Asian fish sauce or Vietnamese nuoc mam. It was fishy, salty, and incredibly pungent. But the Romans did not stop at salt. They demanded balance. To counter the intense saltiness of the garum and the bitterness of the greens, they added sweetness. Since refined sugar did not exist, they relied on honey or grape reductions known as defrutum, sapa, or caroinum. These syrups were made by boiling down unfermented grape must until it reached a thick, sweet consistency. A typical Roman salad dressing was a thick emulsion of garum, defrutum, vinegar, and olive oil, heavily spiced with cumin, coriander, and black pepper. The black pepper was particularly important. Imported from the Malabar coast of India via trade routes across the Arabian Sea and the Red Sea, pepper was a luxury item. Using it on a salad was a way for wealthy Romans to display their immense wealth. A bowl of greens was not a simple rustic dish. It was a canvas for global trade. For the lower classes, who could not afford imported pepper or expensive garum, the salad was simpler but no less intense. The most famous everyday salad of the Roman working class was a dish called moritum, described in detail in a 1st century poem attributed to Virgil. In the poem, a peasant farmer named Similis wakes up at dawn and prepares his breakfast. He goes to his small garden and gathers his ingredients: 4 cloves of garlic, a handful of parsley, some rue, a bitter, medicinal herb, and celery seeds. He places these in a stone mortar along with a block of hard sheep's cheese, salt, olive oil, and vinegar. Using a heavy pestle, he grinds the ingredients together in a circular motion. The green herbs bleed into the white cheese, creating a thick, aromatic paste. Similis spreads this paste onto freshly baked flatbread. This was the salad of the Roman poor, a pungent, garlicky herb and cheese spread. It was not eaten with a fork from a bowl, but smeared on bread. It is the direct ancestor of modern Italian pesto, showing that the Roman concept of a salad was often closer to a dip or a spread than a plate of loose leaves. But the most shocking difference between a Roman salad and a modern one was not the ingredients or even the sauces. It was the temperature. Today we expect a salad to be served cold. We keep our lettuce in the crisper drawer, wash it in ice water, and serve it chilled. But if you ordered a salad in ancient Rome, there is a very high chance it would be served warm, and the greens would be cooked. The Romans had a deep, culturally ingrained suspicion of raw vegetables. This suspicion was rooted in their medical philosophy. Roman medicine was dominated by the theory of humoralism, which asserted that the human body was governed by 4 fluids or humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health was a state of balance between these humors, while illness was caused by an excess or deficiency of one. Under this system, every food had a temperament. Raw greens were classified as cold and wet. Eating too many cold and wet foods was believed to extinguish the body's natural digestive fire, leading to stomach cramps, gas, and systemic imbalance. To fix this, the Romans corrected the nature of the vegetables. They rarely ate greens raw. Instead, they blanched them in boiling water, boiled them until soft, or cooked them in broths before dressing them. Writers Pliny the Elder and Columella both record recipes where lettuce and chicory are boiled and served warm with a dressing of hot oil, vinegar, and garum. Cooking was seen as a way to civilize the raw, dangerous elements of nature, making them safe for human consumption. Even when they did eat lettuce raw, it was not treated as a light, refreshing food. It was treated as a drug. Roman lettuce contained a high concentration of lactucarium, a milky fluid that exudes from the stem when cut. Lactucarium has mild opiate-like properties, acting as a sedative and analgesic. The Romans were well aware of this effect. Pliny wrote that lettuce clears the senses but also induces sleep. Because of these sedative properties, the order in which salad was eaten was a subject of intense debate. Traditionally, Romans ate lettuce at the very end of the meal, as a digestive and an aid to sleep. But by the late 1st century AD, during the reign of the Emperor Domitian, fashion shifted. Hosts began serving lettuce at the beginning of the feast to stimulate the appetite. The poet Martial complained bitterly about this new fashion in one of his epigrams, asking, "Why does lettuce, which used to end our grandfathers' dinners, now begin our feasts?" Ultimately, the Roman salad tells a story that is the exact opposite of our modern culinary assumptions. Today, we eat salad to escape the processed, heavy foods of industrial life. We want our greens to be raw, untouched, and simple. But to the Romans, raw, untouched nature was the enemy. It was cold, wet, bitter, and dangerous. The Roman salad was a triumph of culture over nature. By boiling the greens, pounding them in mortars, smothering them in fermented fish sauce, and sweetening them with grape syrups, the Romans transformed wild weeds into civilized cuisine. They did not want to taste the garden. They wanted to taste the empire.